everyone, and thank you for joining us today for our webinar, Key to IT Security, Rapid Detection, Rapid Remediation. My name is Amy Pace, and I work with OnRamp as a Solutions Architect. I also head up our product strategy, and I will be your host for today's presentation. In this webinar, we will cover the following topics: the evolving cybersecurity threat landscape, the detection deficit dilemma, and how the OnRamp Alert Logic solution can help your business. We'll also be including a live demo of that solution. Our goal is to keep this webinar as close to 40 minutes as possible. So to keep things moving, we will answer questions at the end of the presentation. Feel free to submit any questions you have via the chat window throughout the presentation, and we'll answer all the questions that we can during our Q&A session at the end. For those of you not familiar with OnRamp, we're a managed hosting and data center services provider focusing on security and compliance. We specialize in dedicated private clouds, hybrid computing, as well as co-location. We've been in business now for over 20 years. Alongside me, I have Jeremiah Martin, a security engineer at OnRamp. Jeremiah is a senior IT professional with over 15 years of consulting experience in IT security, audit, compliance, and project management, with extensive work within the HIPAA, PCI, SOX, and NIST frameworks. And our featured guest for today's webinar is John Vaught, Solutions Architect with Alert Logic. John joined Alert Logic in 2009 and works closely with customers, partners, and prospects to help them understand how Alert Logic security solutions address today's cyber threats in a way that traditional approaches and point solutions just come up short. Prior to joining Alert Logic, John was a senior solutions consultant for BMC Software for 11 years, as well as serving for pre- and post-sales roles for Fortune 1000 customers and system integrators across the U.S. So he comes with a lot of experience. Thank you both for joining us today. All right, so let's start with the bad news and the new reality of today's information security landscape, which is that most organizations will suffer at least one successful attack that will do damage. And as we all see in the news, the ramifications of a data breach can be disastrous, especially when you're talking about the loss of intellectual property, damage to your corporate brand or reputation that can lead to loss of future opportunities, possible lawsuits, compliance violations, and this can all lead to stiff financial and criminal penalties. And when we're talking about HIPAA, for instance, that's a federal law, there are criminal penalties associated with that. And as an IT professional, if you're the one in charge, it can mean the loss of your job if you're at the helm when that data breach occurs. Unfortunately, it's taken multiple high-profile breaches in the news, Target, Home Depot, Anthem, many more, to bring awareness of cyber threats into the public discussion. And though it's only these high-profile companies you're hearing about in the news, security risks are definitely escalating rapidly for organizations of all sizes. Looking at cybercrime last year, there were almost 80,000 security incidents as reported by the 2015 Verizon Data Breach Investigation Report. This report, just so you know, included 71 organizations across all industries. And when we're talking about security incidents, the report is defining an incident as any event that compromises the confidentiality, integrity, or availability of an information asset. Along with that, the report also highlighted that there were over 2,100 data breaches. So what's the difference between a breach and a security incident? A breach is defined as an incident that resulted in confirmed disclosure, not just exposure, of data to an unauthorized party. In another report, this went out by the Ponemon Institute, 65% of participants said that the reason IT failed to stop a data breach was because the breach evaded their existing security controls. And 44 of those breaches were caused by malware. This highlights the fact that the type and speed in which threats are increasing, we're talking about millions of malware variations, are easily evading conventional perimeter and network security controls. From advanced malware to compromised credentials being used, attacks are definitely becoming more stealthy and flying under the radar. The fact is traditional perimeter protection measures like firewalls are no longer enough to protect your environment from breaches and compromises, especially when you're not doing continuous security protection.
And that's true. The attacks are actually becoming a lot more complex these days. We're seeing a lot of companies, like you mentioned, Home Depot and Target, that are compliant, and a lot of people install these tools and put these tools in place to sort of make compliance. People are realizing you need to go above and beyond. You've got the tools in place. You need to utilize them. Most of these organizations could have saved themselves from a damaging breach had they had just the right tools in place and knew how to use them and had them set up properly. The problem is most of the time organizations just don't have the budget or staff required to fine-tune or proactively seek out these warning signs, even when the data is fairly easy to access. As I said, even Home Depot and Target lack the IT resources, and these are big companies to identify these threats before it's too late. Having the right tool set in place and having it being useful to your company is key to mitigating these issues. Social engineering, zero-day exploits of application vulnerabilities are common and pretty much very highly effective tactics employed by most of today's cyber criminals.
So as report after report confirms that organizations just can't keep up with the ever-evolving, ever-growing number of threats. As you see, 35% of all cyber attacks go undetected. As we noted on the previous slide, even those attacks that were detected took months to actually detect the compromise. 85% say there is little or no prioritization of events. The ability to prioritize incidents based on business-specific correlation rules is really key in thwarting an attack. 38% say it could take a year to know the root cause of a cyber attack. If you don't know what caused the attack, you're definitely leaving yourself susceptible to getting attacked again in the exact same way. And 55% do not believe their security team has the skills to remediate an incident. The fact is the inability to keep up with the continual barrage of emerging threats has resulted in an alarming detection deficit. So this detection deficit dilemma is very real. Why aren't companies detecting attacks in an effective way? Because they lack the right tools, or they lack the right IT personnel in-house, or the expertise. They might have manpower but not the expertise. Companies aren't focusing on continuous security. Many companies are more concerned with just checking a box and moving on for compliance. And it's pretty clear that compliance does not equal security. Just reference again the high-profile companies like Target, Home Depot that suffered breaches. They were technically compliant, but yet they still managed to get hacked. Unfortunately, these compliance mandates that they're following many times are based on just antiquated technologies. Companies aren't reviewing crucial log data. If you manage IT, you know how you can be inundated with log data. It takes a lot of manpower hours to review log data and to review it accurately. The STANS Institute estimates that a 750 employee company generates an average of 150 events per second, or 12.9 million logs per day. That's a lot. When you're trying to do that manually with very little staff or very little time, it's impossible. And companies aren't addressing the real threats. As we mentioned, organizations are relying on traditional perimeter controls like firewalls that aren't addressing advanced threats like zero-day and social engineering. Firewall is never going to protect you from that. The key takeaway here is what I want to highlight, and the theme throughout this webinar is organizations just don't have the visibility across the entire environment to understand what's happening at any given time. You need that contextual awareness. You need to know what's your situational awareness. Hackers will get in. That's the unfortunate truth. Your fate will be determined by your speed in detection and response. And at this point, I'm going to turn it over to John to talk a little bit about the OnRamp Alert Logic solution, and then we will go into a demo.
Okay, thank you, Amy. Just a brief introduction to Alert Logic if you're not clear on who we are as a company. We've been delivering security and compliance outcomes. We do that using a SaaS-based model, and we've been doing that since 2002. We have a very laser focus in two major areas, and that is intrusion detection and vulnerability assessment. That is one of our products. And then we have log management and correlation and services on top of that to identify log-borne threats. We wrap all of that under an umbrella of our Security Operations Center services. It is our team of experts that analyze security incidents and then triage those through OnRamp services for their customers. So So again, we have a fairly large footprint on a worldwide basis. So we have 2 locations, one in the EU, one here in the States. We've grown to 3,500 customers, and we can actually deploy in multiple environments. So as Amy mentioned, whether you are on-premise hosted, colo, hybrid, private cloud, or other, we can deploy and give you sort of a unified view of what we're detecting within that. The benefit really that we kind of tout as a security-focused company, we allow customers to focus on your core business, and we do that by offloading the work it takes to focus on keeping you secure with a dedicated team of analysts who are looking through your network 24/7 to identify those threats and then mitigate those. Okay. We also provide quite a bit of insight and visibility into what we're seeing, and again, that's another snapshot that can be delivered through OnRamp services. We use a 3-tiered approach, and it's really a mixture of technology. Again, we are a SaaS-based model, and through OnRamp, AlertLogic and OnRamp would deploy our tool set really to gather security relevant data within a given customer environment and then bring that back for further analysis. That is the second tier, our threat intelligence and correlation engine. So we have a dedicated team of folks who are constantly pouring through the internet or the dark webs. We are reverse engineering malware. We have honeypots globally looking for the anatomies of attacks and how they occur. And now we write and generate content to detect those. And then lastly, the third tier would be our people. So it's our Security Operations Center personnel. These are folks from 3 to 20 years of experience and solely focused in mitigating security threats. We have a variety of different certifications, ethical hacking, reverse engineering malware, CISSP, and others, right? So we bring a lot to bear, and really a team of folks so that customers can rest assured we are looking at your environment 24/7, and we have the right staff in addition to OnRamp to help mitigate those threats that we see. Okay, so we do focus in again 2 major areas. So from a log management standpoint, we are collecting logs from a variety of sources and potentially from a variety of environments, and bringing all that data back so we can now do some advanced analytics. We do normalize that data, meaning that we have our own rule library that we manage and maintain. And through doing that, we can now identify security relevant data points within log data. We then bring that back, and again, we provide you some insight into what we're seeing with a team of folks looking at that data day to day. And certainly from a compliance standpoint, if you're looking for auditing reports, I'm an HR-based entity. I've just let this employee go. I'd like to know what they touched in the last quarter so that I can have that as a breadcrumb trail. That's the type of data that we also can collect and provide. Okay. The second one is threat management. We call that Threat Manager as a product. And again, Threat Manager, 2 major functions. So the ability to identify and triage security incidents, looking at network-based activity. So we are doing deep packet inspection. We are aggregating and correlating that data points or those data points together so that we can now identify malicious or suspicious activity, escalating through OnRamp services so that we have kind of a full chain of incident response when we see something bad that's happening. We are also an approved scanning vendor. So if you are PCI focused and you have to provide quarterly vulnerability scans, external vulnerability scans, we are an ASV for that, and we build that into the product Threat Manager as a bundle. So you really gather intrusion detection with escalation services around that, as well as an all-you-can-eat license around vulnerability scanning. It's not just external, by the way. We do also have an internal version that you can leverage, and we'll see all that today. Okay. Kind of the bottom tier there, again, the umbrella for us is ActiveWatch. So it is a 24/7 team of folks. We have about 150 now worldwide that we leverage. And really their job, when incidents occur, they put human eyes on those. And we base that on our experience, 13 plus years of experience that we've been doing this. Okay. So from a compliance standpoint, compliance is sort of an ever-evolving set of guidelines, if you will. The table here before you shows our 2 product sets, LogManager and Threat Manager on the left, and then how we align to HIPAA, HITECH, PCI, as well as SOX. So in some of these areas, it is a one-to-one correlation about where we fit within that compliance framework. Excuse me. And as new standards kind of emerge, we will provide again another snapshot about how we align to those regulations, So you can either check the box from a compliance standpoint, or if you're looking for a deeper security outcomes, how exactly do we map in these different areas? So how does it work? And again, I'll start with Threat Manager. Again, it is a network deep packet inspection model. So as an appliance, it's looking through network activity in each and every packet, and we're identifying using a variety of different signature sets. Today, certainly in excess of 50,000 are what we use. We, as AlertLogic, are constantly updating that. So twice a week now, we push new and emerging threats that we've seen and the content we've built around that to the appliances through automation. And that gives you really a fresh data set to look at when we identify different types of threat activity. We also correlate that across the globe. So if we see a trend or types of attacks that are happening in the EU, we can also kind of build the correlations. We'll put that together, and now everyone benefits from more or less the herd mentality, right? So as we see new threats, content is released. In the zero-day activities, this is a very common thread. If what happens if a new vulnerability was just released and people have already generated attacks based around that? Again, our ability to be very agile. We have our own content team. We produce the content. We push that out to our appliances or our fleet worldwide, and that's usually measured in a number of hours. Okay. And again, the second component of vulnerability assessment, again, internal scans that run from our appliance. So you can do credentialed scanning on the inside looking for those new vulnerabilities that Microsoft might have released. Or the two types of external scans. One is more configurable, and the other one is more focused solely on PCI for the ASP scanning that's required quarterly. Okay. So LogManager, the second product. So ostensibly, LogManager is a data broker from a technology standpoint. So we use, again, a combination of agents or an appliance that's deployed through OnRamp. We will collect data from servers, routers, firewalls, switches, third-party technologies perhaps. We're going to securely bring all of that data back to us. So it's a very secure channel using certificates that only allow our technology to talk to our backend system. All the data is really brought back, and now we have our active analytics correlation grid. So you can think of it as a big data analytics engine looking through various log data points or network data points, correlating those together into security incidents that we now triage through our ActiveWatch services. Okay, and then certainly we have the log data from a compliance standpoint. If you need to keep that data for 12 months or longer, we have the ability to do that and do so. And also reporting and content that we have and we make available through our user interface. Again, we will have a pretty good understanding of that at the end of this. So now I think it's time for a demonstration. Let me share my screen and we will get cracking here. Okay, so I would say that a lot of our customers operate in a lights-out fashion, meaning that we have instrumented or deployed the technology. We have services and technology that are actually looking through, looking for the needle in the haystack to identify that measure, and then services to help with triage that we work with OnRamp one-to-one, on a per customer basis. So from an output perspective, we've identified the data points. So how do we act upon that? We have a few presentation layers. So you'll notice, kind of the data, the indicators of compromise that we bring back are notated by the blue line. So that is a 6-month window of correlation over which we're looking for, related data points, and then we're going to correlate those into actionable incidents, and those are the red lines. So although our demo system here is quite active, on average 3 to 4 incidents a month are what our customers see. And even then, those incidents will vary based upon the complexity or the threat level of a given type of attack. So as an activity measure from a day to 2 months, you have some, a snapshot here, and then we certainly have full reporting around, over time and trends over time about what we're seeing for a given customer. Okay, counterclockwise is the single-day view of the above data. Have we seen something recently with the ability to drill into that? Vulnerabilities, once you've configured those vulnerability scans, this will light up and show you, sort of a weighted measure of what types of vulnerabilities and their urgency. And then lastly, defenses. It's the ability to integrate with firewalls. So when we see an attack, the ability to take action through the user interface as an option is what that's speaking to. Defenses are blocks. These are shuns, right? So IP-based shuns. When we see an attack, you have the ability to either automate that or more often a manual instigation of that. Okay, we also have a dashboard. So the other major presentation view is slicing and dicing data depending upon what a given customer would like to view. So for instance, deep dive into the attacks themselves, to what's generating those, logs, vulnerabilities, blocking, and then in compliance we have these 4 scorecards. What is shown here is the HIPAA version. So essentially, identifying data, the resources in this case related to HIPAA, and what have we seen from the IDS perspective, or patching, or overall, what have we seen in the environment as a whole. These are interactive. Certainly you can drill into the attack details or to a given vulnerability. And reports can also feed this in an automated fashion, right? So maybe every week, show me what these metrics are in a report format. That can easily be set up. Okay, so I'll next go to Threat Manager. Most of this is going to be around OnRamp and Alert Logic doing the deployment side. So we have a project management team, and we work with OnRamp closely to deploy the technology. Once we're deployed and we have the data flowing, then we will see trends over time or the types of attacks we're seeing, et cetera. What this really boils down to, though, is the actual attacks themselves. So active analytics, our correlation grid is taking the raw blue line and, again, turning that into those red lines that need some attention. We do store incident or attack data forever. So as long as you are with us as a customer, you have your full history for reports or trends over time. And within these, you'll see kind of 2 classifications, those based from web technologies. It could be perimeter firewalls. It could be a third party such as FireEye technology, antivirus being disabled, et cetera, Windows Active Directory types of information. Or it could be network-based, right? So we're now looking at the network layer. We do see ransomware or Trojans or worms or post-compromise activity, some asset reaching out to a known bad place in the internet, and now we put some human eyes on that. So at a high level, you can see the drill down point, date and time, what the attack was, how many events correlate to that along with a threat score. And as you drill into the details of a given incident, this is exactly what our SOC team does. So now that we've identified, we had an occurrence, an analyst gets assigned, and they have 15 minutes to go through the details, which is our SLA, and it's for us to escalate based upon what we've seen. So the analyst will pour into the details, maybe understand how the server's responding. What they're doing is they're putting together the story around the attack, the severity, and what options we can offer to a given customer, again through OnRamp, as to how to fix that. Okay, this naturally forms an audit trail. So as we reach out via phone, and that would be based really on a threat score. You have your lows and mediums, unsuccessful, policy violations, the types of things that don't need immediate attention would generate an email and a corresponding lower medium level an incident. And then we have high and critical. These are immediate attention required. We would interact with OnRamp to just kind of triage that and understand what's happening. And then perhaps maybe put a block in place, and that's through the blocking action I mentioned. Or some other security measure, right? So we will notate who we talked to. So the full audit trail of what was captured, how severe was it, and who handled it will be captured here. And again, there an out-of-the-box report that can give you this detail on some recurrence, maybe weekly, monthly, quarterly, et cetera. Okay, in the action from when we catch it to when we've triaged it, and then made that initial reach out is 6 to 7 minutes. Okay, that is the intrusion detection portion. The next step really is around scanning. So again, Threat Manager includes vulnerability scanning, and again, we are a PCI ASV for that. The scans themselves use an engine that's been around since 2000, and so we have now incorporated that technology, and you have the latest, greatest, very high fidelity vulnerability assessment at your fingertips. So the types of data that we will identify, again, per IP, and then drilling into these individually can give you all the gory details of what a given vulnerability is, right? So from CVSS scoring to collateral around, what the world knows about that and how to fix that. This gives you the ability to identify those the unlocked window versus the open front door in a bad neighborhood type of scenario. Okay, so again, scanning is an all-you-can-eat license. So to actually schedule the scan, and again, I think this is a combination of AlertLogic and OnRamp, kind of providing a white glove service to you guys. So internal or external, feed a list of ranges that we're going to scan against. Again, user credentials on the inside, or perhaps ports of different varieties, common ports, TCP, UDP, et cetera. The intent really is to within say 8 or 9 steps, configure the scan, set it up to run on a recurring basis, okay, and then have the output simply emailed out. All right, so this will give you an automated fashion of vulnerability assessment on some frequency, with you can then take a look at those vulnerabilities and maybe tackle the high urgent and critical ones first, and then move on down the line. Okay. Also PCI. So the PCI scans themselves, extremely easy to configure, but essentially domain, host names to scan, and exclusions. All the content is governed by the council, and you can use this as often as you care to again. So very easy to kind of get some visibility into what vulnerabilities may exist for a given customer environment. Okay, I'll next move to LogManager. So again, LogManager will collect from a variety of sources. It could be a Linux stack with syslog, or it could be again, a syslog source through a firewall as an example, a router or switch or third-party technology. From the Windows side, all the Windows event logs will every channel that's enabled will funnel in through us. Often done by the agent that we deploy. Or you might have a flat file, maybe some custom application log that has security relevance, or it could be a web proxy log, a DHCP server log, et cetera. So again, what I call the plumbing is to get the data securely from point A to point B. All data coming back to us is encrypted with AES 256-bit encryption and stored in a purpose-built area for each individual customer. So again, it's more around the deployment aspect, which OnRamp and AlertLogic shepherd through. The actual output appears like this. So when I said earlier we normalize the data points, it's really understanding what type of technology is it, and then how do we extract some value to correlate against those. So for example, a group modification versus an object auditing versus some user account that's being created. We have written the content to identify those pieces. We now have parsing built to identify pieces within that. So if you have forensic reporting that you're after, or you're wanting to maybe generate a query over time and then automate that, this is the facility that we use for that purpose. So again, full text searching, maybe it's an IP or a username you're after, to perhaps a technology if you are an Apache shop. And it's gone through my history and looked and seen these types of messages historically. Maybe that's what I'm looking for. So this is very much the forensic search. You can save a view that you've created and then automate that. And we, in fact, have, as AlertLogic, has created quite a few views already. All of our customers receive these different pieces, including financial, HIPAA, and PCI. And then from these different areas, you can leverage this content, core to the product, to give you some additional insight. And again, these are saved reports. So if you'd like to maybe load it ad hoc or schedule this to run on some frequency, again, it's built into the tool to automate that process. So you don't have to be in here day to day, looking through log output as an example. Okay. Once we've correlated on these views, by the way, the ability to know, for instance, who's been, what user accounts were created in the last week, again, or maybe I've just seen a new user account in a particular group, someone was added to the administrators group. Give me some instant, visibility to that. We work one-on-one with OnRamp to either configure that or automate that process. So the ability to correlate and have user-defined, use cases for a given customer, again, native to the tool. We have an all-you-can-eat training regimen that we provide across our entire tool set. So regardless of what it is you're trying to accomplish, we have the teams engaged. And it's really, to me, having done many of those trainings, it's valuable to a customer to understand how do I leverage the tool, or how do I work with OnRamp to achieve a certain outcome I'm after. Maybe it's compliance reporting, maybe it's just better visibility in a certain area. Okay, and then finally around the report side. So again, I think we would work with OnRamp to define what reports are relevant to a given customer. But certainly, overall trends over time, to CIO, trends over maybe a period of months, to individual reports, that audit report I talked about earlier. These are native to the tool, and they're meant to be automated. So maybe you would like to, run a given report, choose exactly what is, what the scope is, schedule to run at some recurring period, and away you go. We also archive these reports. So every month, and then report name, you would see exactly what we've seen from a reporting standpoint. So if I can just kind of sum it up, we have technology in place to collect security relevant data, network or log. We have analytics and correlation engine to identify security incidents within that. And then we have a team of people, our analyst team, that will vet those incidents and escalate those accordingly through OnRamp, so that we can really deliver a holistic view across perhaps multiple environments from a security standpoint. Okay, and I think with that I will turn it back to Jeremiah.
Hey, thanks, John. So the basic idea behind this whole conversation is that most of the people develop a tool set to meet security principles, be it for audit purposes, be it for compliance. What the partnership between OnRamp and AlertLogic does is provide you expertise both for your environment that we manage here at OnRamp and the security framework that AlertLogic manages. Between the deep security insight, continuous protection, and of course just the lower total cost that we provide at Security Operations Center at a price that you can afford that's much more affordable than trying to do it yourself. One thing I did want to mention, just the Active Watch, it helps protect web applications, detect security and compliance issues from log data, and that sort of leads us into some of our questions that we had. And I'm not sure if Leon is still here, but first let me address one. As far as the screenshots go from the demo, they will not be in the presentation. If you do need screenshots or further information, please feel free to reach out to AlertLogic or OnRamp, and we can provide you that information. But getting back to some of the questions that came up during the presentation, one of them was, do we review HIPAA for the client before applying the service? I'm not quite sure how to answer that question. We do provide services that will help you be compliant to HIPAA. The actual HIPAA compliance yourself will be responsible for the company themselves. OnRamp as a company, we do provide a tool set that you can use to sort of guide you through all the steps you'll need to become HIPAA compliant. However, the AlertLogic package altogether will help you meet most of the criteria that you're going to need to for HIPAA. And then as far as the next question, Leon, I believe was the same one. Do you have the ability to assess a server backend? We offer all types of services for our data center, from completely a managed solution where we help you out with pretty much anything you need, up to just storing your services and monitoring them for you. The AlertLogic specifically, of course, is a 24/7 monitored service that we provide that expertise for both AlertLogic and OnRamp for us. No problem for the poor connections. Anything else? Is there any other questions anyone would like to throw out there real quick? If not, I'm going to turn it over to our Amy Pace and finish us out here.
Thank you, Jeremiah. Just to kind of wrap up here, as we've seen, threats do not discriminate between large and small organizations, even though we're only hearing about the high-profile companies that are getting attention in the news, Home Depot, Target. Threats are happening every day to organizations of all sizes. It's a fact that traditional perimeter protection just isn't enough. Checking a box for compliance does not equate to security. The really key takeaway for this whole webinar is it's imperative that companies adopt a continuous security monitoring approach to detect the advanced threats that are out there nowadays. It's about detection and response more so than trying to prevent the attacks. You've got to be able to identify those threats, stop them in their tracks before the damage is done. And that's why we've partnered with AlertLogic. The solution that we're offering is going to give your company that comprehensive threat visibility, that situational awareness, so you always know what's going on, in all parts of the IT environment, not just at a certain, at a certain stage. It's not like daily review of events. It's real-time 24/7 security monitoring. And that means you don't have to worry about having the staff in-house. You don't have to go out and buy expensive hardware. You have the expertise backed by a world-class security operations center and certified security analysts that is here to work with you. So we are very excited that we've partnered with AlertLogic to give you guys this solution. And I want to thank John and Jeremiah for joining me today. And if you guys would like more information about OnRamp's advanced security services, you can visit www.onr.com. And to stay up to date with our latest news and events, you can contact us on social media. And you can subscribe to our YouTube channel for direct access to today's webinar recording. And we will be sending out an email with a link to the webinar. So on behalf of OnRamp, we would like to thank everyone for attending today's webinar, and thank you again to AlertLogic as well.